Welcome back to Fourth and Favre. This is episode 18, and I'm joined with Dan Hendo Henderson, H-bomb himself. Dan,
How's it
how are
going?
you doing? I think I know you a little bit, Dan, but let's talk about your book that you had. I'm not sure who co-wrote it with you, but Hendo the American Athlete. Do you have a photo? Do you have a book that you can show the audience?
Yeah, I kind of forgot who wrote it with me, but uh, yeah, this was co-written by David Kano. So that's the cover of it.
The photo is a really great photo. I know you went on Joe Rogan to promote that, and one of the things that we kinda talked about after the fact was it was a 2-hour podcast plus, and you waited for the last 5 minutes, and what we've learned is you can't wait for the last 5 minutes to promote a book.
Either way, I mean, at the beginning it would have been probably been better, but I had a good time on the podcast, and being able to talk about the book a little bit was good too. I'm not sure if he read it yet, but maybe he did.
You know, your book, Dan, I mean, I was blessed and fortunate, and I appreciate you bringing me on to write the book. But it's probably one of the most inspirational stories that I've ever heard. And the reason, and I tell people this, it's not just an MMA book, it's a story of perseverance, of overcoming hurdles and being a failure. I mean, because you wanted to become Olympic champion, you wanted to win gold or silver, bronze, you never medaled at in any of the 2 Olympics you went to, but then you went on to become one of the greatest fighters in MMA history of all time, and, oh, by the way, the first double champ even before Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I mean, just having competed in the Olympics was a goal, but obviously a gold medal was the ultimate goal for me. Growing up wrestling, my dad taking me to the '84 Olympics, which were in LA, and watching the wrestling, watching a few other sports, it just made me kind of set that goal and try to become an Olympic champion myself. Fell short on that and didn't get discouraged. I made two Olympic teams, tried for a third, but in that time when I was trying to make a third Olympic team, I started fighting as well. So I kind of was doing both at the same time, and I'm not sure if that kind of took away from my wrestling or my wrestling took away from MMA. But after the 2000 Olympic trials, I decided to quit wrestling and just fight full time.
Now, one of the things while you were fighting, I mean, MMA wasn't what it is today. It didn't have an ESPN deal. And now they're on Paramount Plus. It didn't have that. But there was a time where you and Brett Favre crossed paths in real time, in real life. Tell us that story.
Well, my daughter, same as his daughter, was playing volleyball. I think we were at a volleyball tournament in Arizona, and we were playing each other. And I saw him on the kind of the other side of the court where the parents and the other team were sitting, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool," But I didn't want to bother him. I'm kind of the same way. I just leave people alone a little bit. But it was kind of cool to be able to have our daughters compete against each other. And after the game, he came over and said hi to me. Said he was a fan, and obviously I was a fan of his as well. So it was pretty cool that he did come over and say hi.
And especially at that time as well, right? When MMA fighters weren't as big. I mean, NFL still rules all, but Brett, I mean, three-time NFL MVP. And then here he is saying, "Hey, I watch your fights. I'm a fan of you knocking people out." Were you were a little bit surprised?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised, and some of the other parents on my daughter's team, was like, "Oh my, you're a badass. You had Brett Favre came up and said he was a fan of you." He gave me a little more cred, I guess, street cred.
I gotta say, this is episode 18, Dan. Do you know what the number 18 is significant for?
Well, you could vote at 18. It's one more than when I fought my first UFC, which was 17. But what is it to you?
Well, actually, there was 2 parts to that. One is one after when you won the UFC middleweight tournament, and that's when in the days when you were fighting multiple people at in one night, which was an interesting night. But
Yeah.
the other thing too is when you were 18, and you can address both of these, you weren't the average 18-year-old. You were already on the track to try to make it to the Olympics. So, I mean, you were national champion, and they can read this in the book, and then you end up going to Russia. But talk about you being 18 and your mindset then as opposed to an 18-year-old today.
I mean, obviously, like any 18-year-old, you're looking to have some fun, but I was pretty focused on wrestling. But I don't know if anyone knows any wrestlers. We like to enjoy ourselves as well after, a competition or whatever. But I was pretty focused on making sure that I got the work done to be able to make it to places that I wanted to go to. Part of that was traveling all over the world to compete and train and learn from other coaches, other countries. And, we did spend a lot of time in Russia leading up to me making a Olympic wrestling team. I think I went about 20 to 25 times in a 2-year period from 18 to 21 years old.
And then talk about we'll backtrack to UFC 17 where you fought and you eventually won over Carlos Newton. What was it like fighting multiple times? Because that was in Japan, you were fighting multiple fights in one night. You had up to 3 fights in one night. What was that like?
Uh, I get asked quite often, "Oh, who was your toughest fight? Who was your toughest fight?" That I couldn't tell you one single fight who was the toughest, who wasn't, but I can tell you for sure my toughest night of fighting was when I fought 3 times in a night, and a heavyweight tournament. It was a 32-man tournament that they had the quarters, the semis, and the finals all in one night. So, um, fought a really good kickboxing striker from Holland, Gilbert Ivel, and then Big Nog, and then Babalu in the same night. And that was, and I blew my knee out in the second fight against Big Nog. He kind of tore my MCL, and only had about 20 25 minutes between fights at that one, and went out there and heard the national anthem and forgot about everything else other than winning. So I went out there and beat him up and won.
And Dan, your style was interesting because you were a wrestler, but I remember, and I think we wrote this in the book, is you use your wrestling so you want to be taken down so you could try to knock people out. What you're a wrestler, but you're trying to put people to sleep. How did that come into your mind?
Well, I think once I started getting a little better with my striking, I think I always had the power, but never was able to set it up or put it in the right place. As soon as I started figuring out how to do that, I started knocking guys out, and you know that was the best way or easiest way. I don't know what you want to call it, but the best way for me to finish a fight. And I like to not rely on the judges and just finish fights. So um, I started really trying to hone that in and set up my shots a little better. And you know, there's even with that though, I fought some really great strikers where the goal was to take them down and beat them up, wear them out. And that would be in the game plan every once in a while.
Do you still have that power today? Could you where would you rank if in the whole world? Because it's interesting. I tell people this story. I've never told you this before, Dan, because this is inside DK's David Kano's thoughts. I'll see you, and I'm a couple inches bigger than you, and I'm like, "I wonder if I just went behind Hendo and grabbed him and put him in a rear naked choke, do I have a chance?" And then I saw you spar. I won't tell people who you were sparring. It was a current UFC fighter, and I saw you mess him up a bit, and I thought, "What was I thinking?" So, how would you do, I mean, right now, and I ask people that, do you still have the power there? Could you still handle yourself if a giant that didn't know anything on the street was trying to start trouble with you?
Well, somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, it's a different thing, and a a lot easier to handle than somebody that does know what they're doing. But you know, uh, I haven't sparred in a while, so to answer your question, if you were here, I would let you answer that question for me.
It's fine.
No, but I still do my cross training. I I feel stronger than I've ever been. That's all I'm doing is just lifting weights, but a lot of reps and you know, not as much cardio. So I got a little bit bigger, and I think when it comes down to it, I absolutely still have the power, and I definitely the practice you were talking about when you watched me spar with somebody, I definitely took take guys down and kind of hold them down a little bit more because I'm out of shape and wear them out that way and beat somebody up pretty good. So, but
I mean, I think that's what makes you one of the greatest. I mean, even at the age you are now, I mean, you fought. I mean, you had a title fight at 46, which some people thought you actually beat Bisping in, and then you had one of the historic knockouts of Bisping in UFC 100, which a lot of people still talk about. Do you think that when people talk about that knockout of Bisping, you relive that, or is this something that feels like a dream? Because one of the things, like even Brett says when he thinks about the games he used to play, it seemed like a dream to him and it wasn't real. Is it a dream to you or is it still reality?
no, I mean it's something that I did, and I hear about. I If I'm out in which at my restaurant, I see a lot of people every day, different people that come in, and I will hear about that fight every day. Somebody will say, "Thank you for doing that. That was awesome. That was their favorite knockout." Whatever it is, I hear about that fight almost every day. Um, so I wouldn't say it was a dream at all. I know that I did that. I know that it actually happened, but you know, uh, I understand what Brett's talking about, and no, I don't know. Maybe maybe I'm not too far removed from it, but I know that my wrestling life seems like a different life that I lived because I've been so focused on MMA for so long, and I haven't really followed wrestling as much as I should, and I know that I accomplished some things there, made a couple Olympic teams, but it, you know, I'm very proud of it. But it feels like a different life that I live.
One of the things too is a couple years ago, there was talk of you potentially fighting Mike Tyson in a boxing ring, but then he went on to fight Jake Paul. How close did it come to you fighting Tyson? And was there some reservation of you getting in the ring with Mike?
I think he was even willing to allow like leg kicks and stuff. But obviously, we didn't get down to the nitty gritty on everything. He kind of was non-committal for a little while, even though he was saying he wanted to do it, but non-committal. I think because he was probably working on the Jake Paul thing, and we were gonna. The plan was to fight him after Jake Paul. This is what he wanted after his Jake Paul performance. I was like, I don't think I want to fight him. I'm a fan of his, but I would feel bad. He just wasn't what he used to be, and not even a resemblance of it. Um, and I don't know if his training partners or his coaches were kind of telling him that he was doing a lot better in practices than he was, but he didn't look sharp. He didn't look, he looked his age, I guess, is what I should say. So, and I was disappointed. Obviously, I was rooting for him, and but for me, I didn't get my hopes up, uh, fighting him and getting another big payday, but yeah, I think it would have been fun to kind of go out and do that.
I know we talked off the record that, hey, there was some thought in your head, is this Iron Mike Tyson from the '90s where he was just taunting people? And you, I mean, you have power within your own right, but once you saw him fight, did you think in your mind, "Hey, I'll probably take this fight"?
No, even before I saw that fight, I would have taken it for sure, 100%. Like I said, it would have been fun to do, but after I watched him fight, I just felt like, I wouldn't want to because of him. And the lack of performance that he showed, or he just, I was hoping, and I think a lot of people are in the same boat. We're really rooting for him to show up and knock Jake Paul out. Or, you know,
And Jake Paul is actually, I mean, he just coming off his the knockout loss to Anthony Joshua has actually added some skills, which I didn't think he would, but he's actually showed himself to be somewhat of a decent boxer. Would you take that fight with Jake Paul where he's at, or do you think he's at a level where it just doesn't make sense for you to do that?
yeah, I mean, I think I would take it. It depends on the money, but I don't think it makes zero sense for him to fight somebody like me. That one, I'm not a boxer, but I hit hard and can box. And two, I'm 55 years old. He doesn't want to be the one that loses to a 55-year-old that doesn't box.
UFC 324, where they moved over to Paramount Plus. Let's just talk a co-main event for Sean O'Malley versus Yadong Song. It seemed really close. It seemed like O'Malley did more damage in the third round, although you could make a case that Song Yadong won the first two rounds. How did you see that fight? And you see O'Malley making another run?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I think I missed the first half of the first round, and I watched the rest of the fight. Um, and I thought it was really even. Uh, O'Malley did come on strong that last round, and definitely won that round. But I didn't see the first round, so I had it 1-1. But without seeing the first round, I couldn't really tell you on that one.
And then every other fight, I think, kinda got buried, even Derek Lewis losing to Waldo, to the main event, Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett. Paddy came in, and I thought he was gonna win. He just had that energy about him. It looked like, and I was thinking this, and I said it out loud, he was dancing in the ring before the cage before Gaethje came out. I thought he'd make way more money as a DJ than he would be as a fighter because he has this ginormous fan base, and DJs can make $1,000,000 a night like the Steve Aokis. When you saw when I saw Gaethje come out, he looked a little nervous. What were your thoughts before the fight started?
Well, I mean, I've been a Gaethje fan for a long time. I'm a Paddy fan also, so I was kind of torn on who to root for, but I definitely, uh, I think I was rooting for Gaethje to win for sure. One, he's American, and two, I've liked watching him fight for a long time now, and he's getting a little bit older. I always root for the older guys, um, and I think Paddy represents our sport really well as well. So uh, I was pretty happy to see that Gaethje, remembered that he was a wrestler here and there, and took him down and was able to wear him out a little bit. But Paddy, I think, gained a lot of fans in that fight, just showing how tough he is, how durable he is, and just how skilled he is. Looked like he had Gaethje hurt a couple times as well, but not as bad as how Gaethje had him hurt.
I
So
was surprised that Patty stuck around as long as he did because when Gaethje came in and was trying to finish him, I know he had that kind of that front headlock and was throwing punches. I didn't think that was gonna get him out. I thought when Patty was down and he was raining down punches, but then Patty kind of protected himself. Did you think that Patty was gonna not stay in the fight for so long?
no, I mean, I think he definitely was hurt, but I think he showed, like that's what I just said. He showed that he's tough. He can hang in there, and mentally wasn't giving up. So I think that's what gained him a lot more fans, and and then how he represents himself after the fight as well was. I was, definitely gained a lot more respect for him watching that fight, and I think a lot of fans did as well. Yeah,
One thing, that I did think after the fight or actually watching the fight was that if whoever won, I don't think any of them get through Ilya Taporia or even Arman. I think Ilya's at another level that they're not at, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't want Gaethje as someone that cares for these guys and gals that get inside the cage to get in the cage with Ilya. I know Justin has a different mentality, but do you think I mean, the way Ilya knocked out Max Holloway, Volkanovski, that Justin should take this fight, or at some point, where do you just say it's time to hang it up?
I think Justin has the style to beat him, but he needs to kind of put together a game plan to where he's not just standing there banging, which is hard for him to not do. He loves to do that, and I know I was the same way. So, but if you have a game plan and you have the tools to take somebody down and kind of wear them out, I think Gaethje could absolutely do that. Kind of take it, a play out of Tapiria's book, and take him down, ground and pound him a little bit, wear him out, and then that diminishes the power a little bit later on in the fight.
So you actually give Justin a chance against Ilya?
Oh yeah, I think he's got a chance of, with anybody that he fights, but it's again coming in with the right mindset and the right game plan, and then executing it, which is the tough part.
One of the things that has came out with the Paramount Plus deal, this billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar deal with Paramount Plus is fighter pay. The bonuses went up to $100,000 for performance of the night. However, Justin Gaethje said that his pay hadn't gone up, his fight pay. And when you were fighting, and this is public knowledge now because it was in the book, I mean, you were getting paid $1 million a fight when the fighters aren't even close to getting paid that right now. What made you a prize fighter to get these type of purses where the fighters in 2026, unless you're a Conor McGregor, John Jones, Nate Diaz, they're not getting that type of pay?
I think there was a number of guys getting paid pretty well back then, better than me for sure. But I think just being a double champ in Pride when the UFC purchased Pride, and then uh, I wasn't nearly making that money then, and then I left the UFC and went to Strikeforce because they offered me more money, and they actually offered me exactly what I was asking the UFC to pay me, and they didn't want to pay me, so I went to Strikeforce, and they said absolutely, and it was a guarantee. It wasn't like any pay per view points or anything like that that would add up to a higher amount. But they paid me what I asked for, and had 4 fights there. Finished off with finishing Fedor in that contract, and the UFC had bought Strikeforce. Um, and I think they were under investigation for monopoly, which the big class action lawsuit that just finished was all about. Um, so I think they kind of had to take care of me of what I should have been paid, and like I was happy about that. I know that I was doing well, and it was good.
That Fedor fight, I think it'll go you have so many fights that'll go down in history, but the Fedor fight, I think that was one of the ones where you were a major underdog coming in. Fedor was still Fedor, the great emperor who was just, I think, one of the most scary people on the planet, and many people didn't give you a chance. I remember too, I know I'm giving some stuff from the book, but you had some friends and family, they were like, "Hey, are you sure you wanna do this?" And you for the first time, you're like, "What are you talking about?" "Of course." And you went in there and you pulled off the upset, knocking out Fedor. I don't think you surprised yourself, but was there any type of fear at all going into that?
No, not at all. I honestly didn't know I was that big of an underdog. I don't usually look at that kind of thing. Even if I did, it wouldn't matter to me because they don't know what's in my head and what my attitude is and what my skills are completely. And somebody like Fedor, I felt like I matched up great against. If I needed to slow him down or, not stand and bang with him, I easily could get in the clinch with him. And I know that I'm better in the clinch than him regardless. And that's what happened in the fight a little bit. I clinched him and, you know, tried to wear him down a little bit. And then, just I know that I had power and I know that,
You have a new restaurant in Temecula, California called Hendo's Barrel House, where you show NFL games, NBA games, you show UFC fights. Has there ever been a time where there's an old fight or an old highlight of you on the TV screen in your restaurant?
there's been a couple times that our audio video guy put it up there, and I think during the grand opening. But yeah, I try to not. I don't know. I'm not embarrassed about it, but I don't like to brag about anything. But every once in a while, somebody will get a hold of the deal and put something up there. But randomly, sometimes some of my old fights do play on some of the channels. But it's a sports bar, so we play a lot of the ESPNs and stuff like that. So some of the UFC shows with knockouts or whatever will show my fight occasionally on in here. So which it is what it is. I don't try to make it happen though.
What kind of food do you serve down there, and what can people expect when they go down to your restaurant?
Well, it's a brewery distillery restaurant with a sports bar, country bar, steakhouse feel to it. The steaks are great, burgers are great. Everything. I feel like everything on the menu is really good. So I couldn't. I think this my second favorite thing on the menu is our salmon, and the wagyu ribeye is my favorite, I believe. So we've got a lot of great selections, and down to flatbread pizzas and everything else. It's really good.
So if someone has a complaint, does a waiter or server or bartender call you over and say, "Hey, what's your deal?"
No, they should, but no. Uh, there's a complaint here and there, and we're trying to get the bugs out, but every for the most part, it's everybody just loves the food and the service is great, and the atmosphere is really unique.
One of the games that are you gonna show the Super Bowl there?
Yeah, the we will be showing the Super Bowl here and having a party, so to speak, but and giving away some swag and some gift cards and stuff like that.
So I gotta ask you, Dan, New England Patriots and Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl. I give me a prediction. Give the fans a prediction from the MMA's world. Who wins this game and a score?
Uh, you know, obviously I'm a Rams fan, but and my one of my best friends was a Broncos fan, so I was hoping that Broncos and the Rams would be in the Super Bowl. But uh, you know, I, I think with the exception of yesterday's game against the Rams, the Seattle Seahawks have been crushing everybody. And I think they're just on point right now, and I would definitely put money on them to win.
Do you have a score for us?
I don't know. I'd have to guess 30-20, something like that. Not a complete blowout. At least
I thought you
a
were gonna
10 point
I thought
plus.
you were gonna say 30-27, kind of like an MMA fight would be after 3 rounds. And Hail Mary question for you. If you were to fight John Jones in your prime, and we know you were slated to fight him. There's a chapter in the book dedicated to that in your training routine and how you got hurt. But let's just say you were in your prime and John's in his prime. What happens?
Uh, I would like to think that I would have beat his ass. Um, I was so on point, ready to go, and ready for his reach and everything else. I think the fight would have went the way I wanted it to go the first round, and then he would have probably switched gears and really been trying to take me down after that. Uh, so which which he's good at doing that as well. But I feel like I would have beat him up and hurt him pretty bad.
Hendo, the American Athlete, you can get it at Amazon, you can get it at Barnes& and Noble, and maybe soon you can pick it up at Hendo's Barrel House. Dan Hendo Henderson, we appreciate you coming on Fourth and Farf.
No, I appreciate you having me, and definitely brings back memories of the book.